The King's School Gloucester was founded for the training of the choristers, and the choristers have been a very important part of our life for the last 445 years. They are the strongest link the school has with the cathedral, but obviously nowadays are only 24 boys out of a total of 530 children. However, we are very much a cathedral school, and the choristers form our closest link between school and cathedral, and they're at the centre of both our lives. The whole day for the choristers is geared rather differently. They do have to get to school considerably earlier than the rest of the boys, about 8:15, and they start rehearsals in a special room in the cathedral soon afterwards.
One. Crescendo. Now diction. 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 Okay. Good, that's fine. Now then, empty away and breath. Stop. We're not really interested in trained voices because we want to train them ourselves. And so in our details we say we're looking for boys who've got clear voices, suitable for training, who've got a good musical ear, that's very important, and who can read well, especially biblical English, because they've got to sing the complicated psalms, and boys who have a good academic standard, because it's no good them trying to come into the choir if they can't cope with the work in the school.
It really started when at my old school there was a music teacher who found that I could sing a bit, so I started having singing lessons, and then my teacher saw that there was an advert in the local paper for choristership at Gloucester Cathedral, so she said, "Oh, you might as well have a go. You never know." So we tried, and I got in.
Right, off we go, Webb. Now the first verse, and everybody else ready to come in for verse 2 over the page. Now big breath.
I started at the age of 9. It was 1979, I think. And then 2 terms after I joined, I became a chorister. And then about a year later, I became a foundation chorister when you get number 12 or higher. And then about a year ago, I became head chorister.
The King's School is quite a rare school in that we are an all-age school going from 4 to 18, and our junior school is set in a delightful building which we call Little Cloister, right beside the very ancient cloisters. And inside Little Cloister are the oldest classrooms in the world, which we know have been used for teaching by the monks at least from 1280. And so we are really a continuation of a monastic school from very early in the Middle Ages. We've had girls in the junior school for a long time, nearly 20 years. But of course, until 1985, they had to leave to go on to senior schools. Some of our junior school children do take the voice trials along with outsiders and get choristerships, whereupon their education becomes absolutely free. We don't discriminate for or against them. They're all equal at the voice trials. But perhaps of all the cathedral schools in the country, we at Gloucester are more tied up with the life of the cathedral than any other. While the choristers go off to the song school to rehearse, the rest of the school go to assembly in the cathedral every day, and I think regardless of what is said or sung in the service, it does set the pattern for the day, because these children are being influenced by stones that have been there for 900 years. The school choir sings at these services and at special occasions, and that reaches a very high standard of excellence, partly because we have a number of ex-choristers singing the lower parts. But our trebles are obviously influenced by the quality of voice produced by the cathedral choristers.
That's it. Oh, just a minute, nasty vowel on sour, wasn't it? It really did sound sour. Right, once again, 1, 2.
When I was in the choir, it was a cathedral choir, making mistakes seemed something which you could be punished for. But when you're in the school choir, there's other people around you who are perhaps not quite as good as you. Making a mistake there doesn't seem as bad.
As far as the resentment of the girls against the choristers not being able to be choristers themselves is concerned, I've no doubt that it is going to raise itself as a question in the future, and I think the best thing actually is to ask the girls themselves.
I do think that girls ought to be choristers, because now they're taking girls into the school, I think that they ought to give the girls the same chances as the boys.
I think girls should have the chance, but it would be difficult to change the tradition.
I think to keep up the tradition, it's better if we don't. But if I had the opportunity, yes, I'd try and take it.
I think girls should be choristers, because I enjoy singing, and I am in the school choir. Sometimes I do some of the solos. Lots of people say that my voice is quite like a boy's. It's also unfair because, well, boys get the chance to have free education, and we don't, and I think we should get that chance from singing.
I think the day of a girl chorister is quite a long way off. Some cathedrals do have girls, but they're usually smaller parish church cathedrals where they can't get boys. And anyway, we're governed by the statutes of Henry VIII. And it says, of the choristers, there shall be in the cathedral church not fewer than 12 choristers and 8 probationary choristers, unless the chapter shall decide otherwise, boys who have been baptized, who have good voices and are inclined to singing. Now that specifically states boys, so unless the statutes are changed, and that needs royal assent, I don't think we should be having girls in the choir.
Well, I think that girls coming into the school is a good thing, because you tend to find that if it's just boys, they seem to get a bit shy, you know. But I don't think girls will ever become choristers, or, well, I don't think they really ought to, because the male and female voices don't really blend at treble range.
I think while John Sanders, the cathedral organist, is here, and while I'm headmaster, the girls are going to have to fight very hard to become choristers.
When you see them singing in the choir, they look very angelic, but in fact underneath they're perfectly ordinary little boys. They enjoy all the things that boys normally enjoy. There's nothing peculiar about them.
Somehow people expect choristers just to like classical music. It's not true. We like both pop and classical.
I think we all enjoy pop, really, even though we do sing classical music every day. I think the favourite thing I play is always the synthesizer.
The social grouping of the choristers is very interesting and quite distinctive, I think.
Which one? A maths teacher comes into his classroom and he goes, "Now children, tomorrow I want you to bring in 3 ropes of equal sizes."
I think most of us in school are used to the fact that year groups, people in the same forms, tend to make friends with each other and don't know children in the year above and the year below. The choristers are quite an exceptional crowd of boys in this, that they do form very, very close friendships right through their group, and the 13-year-olds and the 9-year-olds become great friends, and they do tend to stick together.
Pretty simple, because when you put them up like that, and you take one, and that leaves me with the little one.
It's one of the rules of the choir that they must learn a musical instrument, because this does help their sight reading and general musical knowledge and so on. You expect them all to have a good ear, because unless a boy's got a good ear, he's not going to sing in tune.
In the chorister's life, the music has to be the priority. Through the day, the choristers join in with the normal lessons, with the exception of a special chorister period once a week, where they learn their music theory.
Just because you have a different chord. Right, go up one. What's he playing now?
Dominant chord.
In C major. There's our tonic chord again. What was the bottom note of that subdominant chord? Yes, Karen? F.
As you know, keen school teachers are predators and want their pound of flesh out of all the children. I feel that I've got to protect and support them as much as I can.
So we avoid that quite simply.
Some of the teachers get quite annoyed if we miss things because we're losing out on lessons and sometimes we have to catch up.
Try doing it from the top. Try it from the top. Yours getting on. Oh man, yours is much better than ours.
The choristers have got a pretty busy life, apart from doing their maths, French, and even rowing.
I cox the first 4, and they tend not to be very pleased that I don't turn up to all the practices that they want to have.
You miss quite a lot of things, like if you're in the hockey squad, you can be in the squad, but you can't actually play the games if they're on Saturday. When you've got evensong, you don't have time.
At the end of the school day, which is about 3:45 for most of the school, after a quick cup of tea and biscuits or bread and jam, which we offer all the children, they have choristers prep, where they get some of their homework done.
One of the main drawbacks of being a chorister is that after school we don't have so much time to do prep. We have to go to the cathedral to do evensong, so we do get quite far behind.
They sing choral evensong at 5:15, so they're not free at all until 6 o'clock to go home.
If you come to a weekday evensong, you'll find very few people in the congregation. Obviously on Sundays or at carol services, the place is full very often. But during the week, there are very few people. Now, this is really harking back to the days when this was a monastery. when the monks actually sang to themselves for the glory of God, the Opus Dei, as they call it. Well, our choir now is just taking on the monkish offices and offering daily worship, and it doesn't matter whether there's anybody there or not. And I always say that the service, it's a kind of sacred concert every day at which we're performing difficult and complicated music. And so the boys do have to perform to a very high degree of excellence, and they do develop a very professional air.
We do find that when their voices break, they've learnt a tremendous discipline and a power of concentration which helps them in their other subjects. And it is quite common for a chorister to perhaps languish at the bottom of a class for 2 or 3 years while he's a chorister, and as soon as he leaves, he starts shooting up to the tops of the sets.
Particularly this term, my work has got slightly worse. You know, I've had reports that I'm not working hard enough because of my choir life, I think that is.
To begin with, I kept up quite well in the class, but as I gradually went through the years, that work began to get harder, and I fell behind quite a bit. But when I left, I caught up, so I'm reasonably near the top.
Well, when their voices break, in fact, break is a word we don't use because boys' voices don't really break, they change. We praise thee, O God. When their voices change and they can no longer sing treble, well, obviously they've got to leave the choir. I advise them to keep on singing, but being very careful not to strain their voice. If you just keep it kind of running gently, without any strain, probably they'll develop a nice tenor or bass voice.
Continue to do quite a bit of singing, various groups among the school and the school choir, in the choral society where I live and stuff like that, which is nice. And it's more of my own choice of music I sing perhaps, or the groups I sing with, rather than being forced to do just church music.
I don't think I've got long left now. I think it's a couple of terms or so, but it usually lasts about 5 years once you've joined a choir.
When a chorister's voice breaks, there are definite signs of withdrawal symptoms. They are absolutely bereft, or can be, for 5 or 6 weeks. There's a certain relief, I think, that they've had enough after 5 years of singing daily services, but they just don't know what to do with their time, and quite a number of them voluntarily go along to choral evensong for several weeks before they learn to do other things and find other occupations.
Miss it when you first left, especially if you went back and you heard your friends singing and you really wanted to join them, sort of help them along, sort of thing.
and then you've got a lot more homework as well, and sports, school sport, and then out enjoying yourself as well. It comes quite highly in the list.
We think that the rarefied atmosphere of the cathedral must have an effect on all our pupils, not only the choristers, but it probably doesn't show itself at the time.
Because we are a cathedral school, I take the cathedral for granted, really.
I think many of our pupils find that in later life they look back upon it with great nostalgia, and a lot of ex-cathedral school children want to send their own children to cathedral schools.
Being in the cathedral, you see the structure and the architecture, and you appreciate it more than when you're in just a normal modern school. And now, looking back to it, you see how privileged you were to be singing in it.
Well, at first, when I first joined the choir, I think I tend to be a bit overawed by the size and beauty of the cathedral, and I think that made me sing a lot better than I would otherwise.
I used to think it's absolutely brilliant, and I always used to look forward coming to the cathedral and to Eucharists, but now it's just part of my usual everyday life. But it is a nice place to sing in. There's a lovely echo, and the sound spreads around and fills the whole atmosphere and space. It's lovely.
I've often wondered whether the boys believe what they're singing, especially in those parts of the psalms which are particularly obscure. And they sing a lot of psalms, but the way they sing and the inflections they give make it clear to me that they have understood.
Well, I think it's very hard for some of the choristers to understand what we sing every day and believe what they are singing.
I think everyone in the choir believes what they are singing, some more than others, of course, as they belong to more religious families.
By the age of 13 or 14, when their voices have begun to break, we've at least presented them with a very clear religion which they can accept or reject.
I can understand some of the Latin things we sing, and most of the English, really. But I do think you ought to be religious. You ought to believe what you're actually singing. Otherwise, it's silly you being there.
I think I'll definitely welcome the free time when I leave the choir. But I feel sad in a way because I've enjoyed life as a chorister. And it's been all right.